Greetings to all my tech heads out there in the KevTechify Nation, and if you're new here, welcome. In this episode, we're going to look at service policies on an ASA. We'll be discussing overview of MPF, configuring class maps, defining and activating a policy, and finally configuring ASA basic settings and firewall using the CLI. This episode is part of my series on network security for the CCNA. I'm Kevin here at KevTechify. Let's get this adventure started. Modular policy framework, typically referred to as an MPF. This is a configuration that defines a set of rules for applying firewall features such as traffic inspection and quality of service to the traffic that traverses the ASA. Modular policy framework also allows granular classification of traffic flows, which enables the application of different advanced policies to different flows. The Cisco Modular Policy Framework uses three configuration objects to define modular, object-oriented, hierarchical policies. The first one here is class maps. What are we looking for? How we set that up is from global configuration mode, it's class-map, and then we specify what we want the name to be. Then the second one here is policy maps. What shall we do with it? And the command syntax, pretty simple, follows the first one along. It's policy-map and then the name of it. And then the third one is service policy. Where do we do it? So we have the service policy, the name, and then we specify, is it global or is it on a specific interface? There are 4 steps to configure a modular policy framework on an ASA. Step 1 is optional, and it's to configure extended access control lists to identify granular traffic that can be specifically referenced in a class map. Step 2 is to configure our class map to identify the traffic. Step 3 is to configure a policy map to apply actions to those class maps. And then step 4 is to configure a service policy to attach the policy to an interface. So what happens here, step 1, we create that ACL to identify traffic. Step 2, we create a class map here. We're going to either use that ACL we created in step 1, or we're going to go ahead and put in several access control entries here in our class map to identify our traffic. Once we've identified our traffic, then in step 3, we apply actions to the traffic we identified from step 2. And then finally in step 4, we configure our service policy, where we're going to look at our policy map and apply it to an interface. So identify the traffic, then what actions are going to happen, and then attach that action to the interface. To create a class map and enter class map configuration mode, use the class map global configuration mode command. Remember, first thing we can do that's optional is we can create an access list to identify granular traffic. That's what we're going to do right here. We're going to call it TFTP traffic. We're going to permit UDP traffic any that's equal to 69. Now what we do is we create our class map, and we're going to call the class map class-TFTP using normal naming configuration, all caps, and that name is case sensitive. Our command prompt does change, and we're saying we are configuring a class map. What we're doing is saying anything that matches the access list TFTP traffic, once again referring to that extended ACL we created right above, anything that matches it, we're going to do something with. So we created our class map identifying our traffic. Then we'll go ahead and create a policy map. We'll call it policy-TFTP. We're going to say, okay, the class here we're using is class map. And so this here, class TFTP, that's from where we here. So any traffic we've identified using this access control list in this class map, we are then going to inspect for TFTP. We're going to do some sort of inspection with that. So that sets up our policy map. We can exit out. And then finally, we're going to set up our service policy. And where does it apply? It globally applies to our ASA. Review for episode 22, network security testing. Operations security starts with the planning and implementation process of a network. The staff that sets up and conducts the security testing should have significant security and networking knowledge in these areas: device hardening, firewalls, intrusion prevention systems, operating systems, basic programming, networking protocols such as TCP/IP, and network vulnerabilities and risk mitigation. Many security tests can be conducted to assess the operational status of the network and include penetration testing, network scanning, vulnerability scanning, password cracking, log review, integrity checkers, and virus detection. There are many tools available to test the security systems and networks, including Nmap and ZenMap, SuperScan, SIEM, GFI LandGuard, Tripwire, Nessus, LoftCrack, and Metasploit. Nmap and ZenMap are commonly used in free low-level scanners. SuperScan is also a free Microsoft Windows port scanning tool. Security Information Event Management is a technology used in enterprise organizations to provide real-time reporting and long-term analysis of security events. SIEMs provide correlation, aggregation, forensic analysis, and retention. It was my pleasure to provide you with this wonderful episode on service policies on an ASA. If you like this episode and you got value out of it, please click that like button, give a 5-star rating, leave a comment. This all helps me bring you more great content. Please take a minute to subscribe to my channel. All of my socials and contact information are on my website, KevTechify.com. There you can find out how to get all these episodes in video and podcast form. In the upper right is my playlist for my series on network security for the CCNA. In the bottom right is one of my favorite videos that I linked just for you. Thank you so much for watching this episode of my series on network security for the CCNA. Once again, I'm Kevin. This is KevTechify. I'll see you next time for another great adventure.